Hi everyone. This video is a review of Chapter 8 in Rudolf Steiner's The Philosophy of Freedom, entitled The Factors of Life. We are going to take a scientific approach of comparative case study. We will start by making a distinction between Case 1, a feeling personality, and Case 2, a knowing personality. Characters will be used to represent the different views that are presented in the chapter. At the end of the video, we will look at how the experience of intuitive thinking is different. In the first half of the Philosophy of Freedom, we learn about ourselves as a knowing being. As a knower, we give things meaning by conceptually defining them. The knower leads a purely conceptual existence. He is aware of himself as a thinking being and determines his life logically. His life is spent gaining knowledge by establishing conceptual relationships and organizing things in a conceptual system. His personality lives in his conceptual content. He has a knowing personality.
You can't tell me that when you first saw Jim alive that you weren't on the verge of giving us an emotional scene that would have brought the house down.
Merely my quite logical relief that Starfleet had not lost the highly proficient captain.
Yes, Mr. Spock, I understand.
Thank you, Captain.
Of course, Mr. Spock. Your reaction was quite logical.
Thank you, Doctor.
Our personality would remain purely logical if it were not also determined by other factors. A salesman comes along and responds, "But logical people are so dry and lifeless." When I perceive something, such as a person or an object, I relate to this perception in two ways, in my feeling life and in my knowing life. The feeling life lives in feelings. It establishes a relationship with the person or object based on the feelings that emerge. The knowing life lives in conceptual content. It relates to things in the purely conceptual activity of knowledge. The recollection of past thought appears to us as dry, while emotions are seen as full of life. So naive common sense tells us that the life of feeling is more full of life than the life of thought. If you have never experienced the pure thinking of mathematics or philosophy, it makes sense to believe there is more life in feeling than in knowing. A theosophist asks, but do our feelings express our true nature? The naive realist only believes in things that he can perceive. He passively perceives a feeling just like he perceives any worldly object that enters his field of vision. The difference is that feelings belong to me, so they appear on the subjective side. Objects are located outside me, so they appear on the objective side. Naive common sense says that feelings are real because I can perceive them, and they are subjective because they belong to me. So it seems to follow that feelings express the real nature of my personality. A carpenter exclaims, "But I don't understand feelings." Naive common sense is the basis for many kinds of cognitive bias. A naive person accepts the world as real just as it appears to them, without the need of further reflection. A feeling that wells up in them is accepted as a complete reality without needing to be explained. The thinker recognizes that a feeling, just like other things in the world, is an incomplete reality that requires the addition of a concept if we are to understand it. Feelings, like other perceptions, always appear before knowledge. A concerned professor says, "But understanding my feelings do not tell me who I can become." At first, we merely feel ourselves as existing. Our existence is filled with a blind mass of feelings. We gradually develop and struggle to the point where our individual identity emerges. We conceptually define ourselves. But who we become later was in the beginning inseparably bound up with our feelings. An engineer asks, "I may know myself, but how do I know the world?" Because he is inseparably bound up with his feelings, the naive person believes that in feeling he grasps what exists in the world immediately, while on the other hand, to grasp the world in thought requires the struggle of thinking. It is not immediate. It takes time and work. This means the thinker can only relate to the world through the mediation of knowledge. But people are busy. it is easy and convenient to rely on the immediate reaction of feelings to grasp a situation than it is to think. This is why relying on the feeling life seems more necessary to the naive person than anything else. A lawyer states, "But the simplest knowledge is to grasp what exists. I need to grasp how things are related to each other." The naive person must feel the connection between things in the world before he believes he grasps it. He attempts to make feeling the instrument of knowledge by seeking insight through feeling rather than thought. Rationalizations and conspiracy theories use feelings to link together facts in order to reach a desired outcome. A psychologist explains, "But we all have a need to prove the correctness of our personal theories about the world. A feeling is something entirely individual. It is individual just like the perceptions we form of the world. So the naive philosopher of feeling makes his personal principles that have importance only within his personality into world principles. He tries to inject himself into everything. The thinker observes the world and uses concepts to form world principles. The philosopher of feeling makes assumptions based on his own felt union with things. He sees his feelings as a more direct connection and will not let anything else intervene between the world and his feelings about it." A psychic says, "But I want to go beyond the personal and reach up to universal principles." The tendency just described, the philosophy of feeling, is mysticism. The error in the mystical form of intuition is that it wants to experience in feeling what should be attained as knowledge. The mystic tries to elevate feeling, which is individual, into a universal principle. But a feeling is entirely individual. It is the effect of the external world on the subject. A feeling is a purely subjective experience. The chapter continues on to compare thinking with willing. The results are similar. In 1918, Steiner made an addition to Chapter 8 that completes the chapter by explaining how thinking, feeling, and willing come together in intuitive thinking. To come to an understanding of the life in thinking, a distinction needs to be made between the recollection of past thought and the experience of new thought. Thought is cold in recollection. It is as if the life of the mind had dried out. An intuition is the first appearance of a new thought. The experience of intuitive insight is filled with a wealth of life. Intuition is not merely abstract thought. It brings light to a situation by diving deeply into the phenomena of the world. When we experience thinking intuitively, we find in it both feeling and willing. We are inspired by our love for truth and motivated to act. Whoever turns away from thinking towards mere feeling and willing loses the true reality of feeling and willing. Since the feeling and willing found within intuition are connected to knowledge, they are complete and appear in their full reality. The mystics of feeling and the metaphysics of will believe they are rooted in reality, while the intuitive thinker is untouched by feeling and blind to reality. As we have seen, this is not the case. These kinds of mystics and metaphysicians are drawn to anthroposophy and are even promoted and popularized. This is the result of not studying the philosophy of freedom. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon with another video.